Alright guys, welcome back to the Producer Mindset. Today I want to talk about EQing because EQing is a subject I could really talk for ages about, probably for hours and days and weeks and months and years. I think EQing is maybe one of my favourite things about producing. At least I think it's maybe one of my best skills as well. But anyway guys, so let's talk about EQing, right? I want to show you guys the mindset that I have for EQing, and the reason I like to do these kind of videos as a little refresher almost is for new people who come onto my channel, because as the channel grows slowly but steadily, new people come along and it's our job to spread the information to newer subscribers so that they don't fall into those sort of same traps, because it'll often happen when someone is perhaps newly subscribed to my channel, and then I'll get them on a one-on-one lesson, and then I'll take a look in their project and I'll see their process, how they're EQing, and I'll see the same mistakes come up again and again, and so that's why I still try to do these videos, is so that for new people to get a better concept and grasp of EQing. And the biggest mistake that I see in EQing is kind of the mistake that I want to touch on the most today, is having this mindset that EQing is going to save you, or it's going to solve your problems, and drastically, and also that you should really treat EQing like you can really go overboard with it and do crazy EQ shapes and stuff like that, So what I've learned throughout my journey as a producer is that basically the less you can EQ, the better, right? And really the only reason, if you just sort of solidify this mindset, the only reason that you would have to EQ is if there's something wrong, And when you're making music, you're the chef and you're sourcing the ingredients, and that means that you're the one that's responsible for the sound design, and if you're using other sounds like samples or whatever, you're also the one that's responsible for choosing those and selecting those, And so really EQing is something you can do to fix the sound if there's something wrong with it, So if there's something dramatically wrong with the sound, the finger of blame will always go back to you as the one who chose it, So when you're picking sounds that are well balanced, ideally, And when you're sound designing, when you're creating sounds from scratch, you're also designing sounds that have a nice balanced sound, a nice balanced frequency range, with no strange chaos and crazy things going on. I used to do this a lot when I started producing. I would try to use all kinds of sounds that had so many errors in, and then I would find myself doing this thing where I'm really having to stress the EQ to really carve out these crazy shapes and change the sound so much, rather than just designing a better sound that's more balanced to begin with, or choosing a better sample that's actually a lot fairer in the frequency spectrum to begin with, And so once we understand that EQing is a tool to fix problems, and then we ingrain that in our mindset to go back to the source problem and change that, so that we're picking sounds which ideally don't need any EQing, So then once we understand that, that's the first point to understand. Then we can begin to actually use EQing in a smarter, more subtle way to get a good mix down, to carve out space between elements, to create separation and all this good stuff, But we're doing that from a place, we're going into the EQing then from a place of knowing that the sound, knowing that we've chosen the best sounds to begin with, so we're not having to do crazy things to correct the sound. We're just then subtly EQing for a more cohesive mix and to create more space between the other elements that we have, And so when we're doing that as well, then we can start to yeah, we can start to EQ in a much smoother, more subtle way, because we're just solving little conflicts and we're just doing little enhancements, little improvements always. So we may be doing like a gentle peak boost, 2 or 3 dB. We may be doing a little cut, a little peak cut, 1 or 2 dB. We may be low cutting to take some low end out of a sound, to give room for a bass, or we're taking some rumble out of a sound, but we're low cutting very gently, 12 dB slopes, 18 dB slopes. Everything's like hunky-dory, everything's happy. And the most important thing when we do this is that we don't stress the EQ, because this is why I'm making this video, and this is why, what I see on a lot of, more beginner / intermediate producers' projects is they really, really stress their EQ. And that, when I say stress, it's doing sharp cuts, it's drawing some kind of Picasso-like artwork within your EQ. It's basically doing everything which is the opposite of what I talked about. Small, gentle bumps, small, gentle notches, gentle low cuts, gentle high shelves, for example. It's basically anything that's not doing that is you're stressing the EQ. And what you don't realise is that you're ruining the sound quality of your song by doing that. That's the most important thing to remember here. Because an EQ is not like a perfect tool, What you're doing when you're EQing is you're changing the sound. You're taking frequencies out of a sound or enhancing, trying to create more frequencies within the sound. And the EQ is then forced to, do that job and then like recreate a sonic image based on what you're trying to achieve. It doesn't simply just do what you want and it's the same sound quality. No. It does what you want and it tries its best to retain sound quality while it's doing the job that you're trying to give it, So the easier of a job that you give it, the smoother and the less work it has to do, the easier of a job the EQ will have to retain the actual sound quality of the sound that was there to begin with, And so think about it, if you do a cliff cut 98 dB sharp cut in your low end at 80 Hertz on a bass, for example, then everything upwards from 85 Hertz and upwards, the EQ's got to recreate that part of the sound without this whole, low end part that was in there before. And in reality, it's just not going to be able to recreate that kind of exact sound that you're hoping for without reducing some kind of sound quality at least, So that's why you have to treat your EQing process very subtly, like a painter who's trying to get the most detailed image, the most detailed painting, by applying gentle brush strokes. Many gentle brush strokes over the image creates a finer texture, And it's the same with EQing. So as an EQ is like my favourite tool as a music producer, and it's like my brush. It's like my paintbrush for the frequency spectrum, So like coming at it like some producers do, like you're coming at your mix with a pair of scissors, is not good. It's going to decrease your sound quality and mix down over time. So you want to come at your EQing like you're painting, like you're brushing, and many brush strokes along the journey of the production, This is another thing, is that producers will have just one EQ, and then they'll be like surprised when I say, okay, close that EQ, let's get another one on, and then they're like, well, I can't. They'd go back to the first EQ again. And that's the real difference, I think, is that you haven't developed the mindset of your EQ being like a paintbrush that constantly paints the frequency spectrum throughout your whole production process from start to finish. So your goal is to get good at EQing, you know, subtly in the right moments, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, like as you go through the mix down process, as you go through the sound design process, as you go through the compositional process, as you go through your layering. You know, you're always listening to the whole mix, so you've always got the whole mix in context, and then you're applying these subtle EQ brush strokes here. 10 minutes later, maybe you got another one here, and that's how you're EQing, like always gently, always subtly, over a long period of time to get that fine result, you know? So that's how you treat your EQ. It's literally your best friend, and it's literally a relationship that you want to have with it that's very easy relationship, you know? It's often, you use it often and easily. That's how to approach EQing, okay? So, what did we learn from this video? Well, if you're going to EQ, you're basically telling yourself there was something wrong with the sound then. So, was it still the best sound that I could have picked? If the answer is yes, proceed to chapter 2, which is, okay, I'm going to EQ, but I'm going to give the EQ the least amount of work. I'm going to stress it the least. If that means I've got to do multiple EQs in a sort of setup, you know, across the whole processing chain, then I'd rather do that than just do one EQ that stresses everything and then, yeah, gives, you know, I don't give the EQ enough, you know, space to make the changes I want it to make, you know. So give the EQ like space to do its job. Don't stress it so hard. And then we haven't even begun to talk about mid-side EQing. There's so many other topics I was going to talk about for this video, but I think that's good enough for now, because it's a little bit chilly out at the moment, so get back in the studio and get to editing. But yeah, that's, I think, still a useful video today for EQing. So hopefully that helps you out. And yeah, I talk a little bit more about this in my mastering training that I do, because EQing is really a foundation of the mastering process. And there's someone asked me recently, where are my mastering videos at? I don't really have any mastering videos because it's one of the more exclusive you know, packages that I sell is my mastering training. So, you know, it's pretty much something that I only teach to clients who pay for, because it's my mastering process that I've, you know, developed over the years. And it's kind of my day job in a sense. I do mastering a lot, so, you know, to give away all of my mastering strategies on YouTube, it's not something I'm quite willing to do now. But yeah, basically, you can learn more. You can learn about my whole mastering process if you ever want to have mastering training with me. You can book that in via the links down below. And if you just want mixdown training as well, that's my normal mentorship is linked down below as well, just for normal one-on-one classes. So anyway, thanks for watching today. Hope it was helpful. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. And check out the other links to my preset packs, my Patreon community, and there's some affiliate links down below as well. Some plugins I recommend, and some cool D&B sample packs I recommend as well. Alright then guys, that's it for me today. More from me soon. Much love.